Preferences allow you to customize how the different features in CenterPoint behave for you. In this session, we're going to go over the preferences for accounts. In your program, you're going to select File and Preferences, and the different sections in gray are listing different individual preferences underneath those different sections. And we're going to be talking about the preferences for accounts. On your left are your different preferences. On the right are some tabs. If I highlight my first one for account settings, we have some tabs on the right. Current settings is indicating what is currently set for that particular preference. Global is if you're a network user, then it will set it for all applications of all users of all databases. And only a couple of the preferences are open for a global selection. Application would set the preference for all users of all databases, and the database would set the preference for just a particular database. So if you have multiple databases, your individual databases could have individual preferences. And users, if you are using different users in CenterPoint, then preferences can be set at the user level also, so that individual users could have their own settings for preferences. So we're going to start with the account settings, and we'll go to the application tab. And in the account settings, it is setting how you want your account number to be used. So we have some different mask characters as a guide here. And right now it has 6 number 9s. That indicates that you can have up to 6 digits. But when using the 9 as a placeholder, the entry is not required. So some of your account numbers could have 4 digits, some could have 6, some could have 5, or any number up to 6. If you had 6 pound signs, and we change this to pound signs of 6, that would mean that 6 digits are required. So if you always want your account number to have a set number of digits in it, you would use the pound sign. And then you can use these other characters also if you want alphanumeric or a different character as a placeholder. You would use those different characters. Down at the bottom, you can also define if you want your account list to be displayed with the hierarchy of account type and then account category and then the accounts underneath it, or if you want it as just a flat list and you could order it by any one of the columns that you had displayed, and then you can select yes or no. Once you make your selection, you're going to want to click Save, or if you want to go back to the default settings, the Reset Defaults would reset back to what's installed. Our next item will be Account Item List. This gives you the option to expand your list, like of your accounts or your fixed assets or anything in a list. It would expand it out automatically for you if this is set at yes. If you set it at no, then it displays, when you bring up the screen, it'll display it as collapsed, and then you can always expand it manually. On distributions, if you're using account distributions in CenterPoint and you do a general journal, this option set to yes would automatically check the distribution box so that if you selected an account that had an account distribution, it would automatically pick up that default account distribution. On inactive accounts, when you inactivate accounts in CenterPoint, your lists in CenterPoint are automatically filtered to not show active, and you can uncheck that to show all active. But if you are using a recall or a reoccurring transaction in your different entries, your payments, your receipts, your invoices, it's possible that one of those old transactions might have an inactive account that was saved in it. This would give you a warning. If you set to display a warning message, it would give you a warning if an inactive account was recalled or used in a reoccurring on your entry screen. And if you set for do not display a warning, then it's just not going to warn you if that occurs. Or when you select an inactive account at all in a transaction, there's another selection to display a warning if you want to be warned of that. CenterPoint allows you to have internal accounts. What internal accounts are used for is within your company activity, or you might have two companies within your database and you do some transfer of activity between one company and the other, perhaps like an internal crop sale or a transfer account, and you don't want those showing on a balance sheet or an income statement that you might be giving someone else. Then you can set those accounts as internal accounts. And when you run your reports, like a balance sheet or an income statement, there will be a report filter option. You'll have to click more items. There'll be a report option to display internal accounts, and you set that for yes or no. Multiple bank accounts is if you're entering general journals and you want to use more than one cash account in that general journal at one time. And the reason that you don't typically want to do that is to have valid cash reporting, because the CenterPoint has to determine what is offset to cash for the cash reports when you're doing a general journal where it's not a payment or a receipt where you're actually picking that cash account up at the top of the screen. If it's just part of a number of accounts, it has to determine what's cash. And so typically you don't want to have more than one cash account in a general journal, but if there's reasons that you do other than bank transfers, then you would mark this as yes. CenterPoint also allows you to have personal accounts. You can have a personal company. And if you have a personal company and you mark some accounts as personal, if you set this option of use personal accounts yes, that will have a checkbox on your accounts to mark those accounts as personal, and then those accounts can be used with your other companies, like an electric bill where maybe part of it might be personal, and that would automatically go to your personal company. So that's what that feature would do for you. And down at the bottom is an option of how you want interest expense displayed. The Farm Financial Standard Council financial guidelines states that interest expense is not an operating expense, so wants it in other expense account category. If you don't want that, if you want your interest expense to be with your other regular expenses, selecting this override as yes would change the position of those interest expense categories. And those are all of the features for the account section. When you make your selections, you want to make sure and click Save. And with many of the preferences, you want to close your database and then open it again in order for those new preferences to be active. And we'll have other sessions on some of the other preferences in CenterPoint.